Welcome back, everyone. Today I figured we'd do a project on the Ural. So for those of you who have owned these, you know that they have a tendency to run a little bit on the warm side. I've got a winch installed on mine, which I will be taking off for summer driving, but I figured I might as well give it every chance it can to stay cool. So I got this oil cooler. This came from Ural of New England. I am not sponsored, just figured this was a good product and I wanted to give it a try. So this is just a finned reservoir. The way this works, down in the front of the engine you've got your spin-on oil filter. So here's an adapter that sits in place of that. So it goes on here and the filter will go on top of it. And then you've got an inlet and an outlet here on the side. We've got a couple hoses that we can cut to length and put some fittings into. And then this mounts down on the inside of the sidecar, kind of right behind where my winch is sitting, underneath the tonneau cover. So it increases your volume of engine oil, and it also gives some extra cooling fins for the wind to move across. Here we've got our hardware. So we've got a bunch of tie wraps just to help keep things tied up. Instructions. This is your extra O-ring and your extender. So this piece threads into the engine where the filter would normally go, and then this slides over the top right down on there. Then obviously your extra O-ring goes in here, and then on the outside you'll have an O-ring on your filter. Then we've got a bunch of barb fittings. Two different sizes. So obviously the barb itself should be pretty similar. They are. But we got two different threads. So one of these is going to fit into here. It's the smaller one. I'll go ahead and thread that in a little bit. Why not? There we go. Okay. There's that. And that. Okay. There we are. And then these two will go in here. Whenever you're dealing with aluminum, it's always a good idea to thread backwards until you hear that little click. I'm sure those of you who have worked on any kind of mechanics know this. Just to make sure that you're not cross-threading something. There we go. Okay. And there we are. And then we have hose clamps and our bag of mounting hardware to go with the cooler itself. So I'm going to take a look at the instructions, but this is pretty easy. There really isn't all that much to it. The biggest thing is just making sure that when you line this up that you've got, it sits above the engine head so you can still get to the valve cover. Obviously we need to be able to take that off of there in order to adjust the valve, the rocker arms. And try to keep it straight, keep it below the tonneau cover. Should be easy enough to do. Let's get going. Here we are at the front of the engine. So this is the newer model. This is a 2022. Obviously if you have the older carbureted version that has the cartridge filter, then you might need to upgrade to one of these spin-on filters. There are upgrade kits for that. I don't know honestly if this kit works with the adapter. But what we have here, I need to drain the oil, and then I need to take off this filter. I just ran this. Watch out for the exhaust. Need to take off the filter and then work on getting this placed where it goes. So I'm pretty sure this can sit sideways and fit behind the frame there. So that's going to be my plan, at least to start. If it becomes necessary, and I don't love this idea, but if it becomes necessary, I can always put it on vertically this way. And hopefully that would allow it to sit with the hoses coming up and I can go over the exhaust. Now that I think about it, I might actually prefer that. That at least keeps them away from the exhaust pipe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll kind of play with it a little bit and see what I need to do. So, step one, need to drain the oil. I do have a skid plate on this bike, But down underneath, there should still be an opening down here for me to get to my drain plug. There, yeah, so right back in the middle underneath is where your drain plug's located. Put a catch pan underneath and you can get rid of the oil that way. I was going to include a full fluid change with this video, but actually all of my stuff didn't show up. So I don't have replacement oil or a new filter. So what I'm going to do with this one, when I get this installed, I'm just going to put the old filter back on just to keep things clean, and I'm not going to run the engine. So there won't be any oil in it, or at least none to speak of. But definitely, if you're going to do this, the right way would be to have a couple quarts of the appropriate Motul oil when you're doing it. So I'll have to do the fluid change in a future video. Sorry for the weird angle. So here's the front of the engine up here. You can see the exhaust coming down the skid plate underneath. Down here, right there, is our hole. And right up above it, you can see my fingers at all in there. That's where our drain plug is located. So this is a 17 millimeter. So relatively easy to get to, even with one of these skid plates on. You just use a socket and an extension. That'll get you up where you need to go. And we'll put a catch pan underneath and get it drained. Well, here's what I decided. So in my case, I've got this clamp over here that I think you can see. There are two pieces to this, the skid plate portion, and then there's a clamp piece that goes around the back of the frame there. Unfortunately, with that being in that location and the hardware behind it, if I run these two fittings straight out the side like I think they're designed to go, it's going to cause problems. Basically, I'm going to have too much rubbing on the surrounding material. So I decided to run these up a little bit. So right about there is where I'm going to put it. So it's kind of angled off to the side. I truly hope this is going to work. I'm hoping it's not gravity. Yeah, it doesn't require gravity to actually fill that cooler, but I guess we'll find out really quick. If it does, I can always take a hose off of it and pump it full with just like an oil can, and then finish it that way. But basically the way this works, you put the O-ring on the inside, then you slide this into position, and then this adapter piece attaches to the outside. Now I just need to tighten it down, and that will lock in the seal against the engine up here, right there. Then I should be able to put the oil filter back on the top of this. So my next step is to figure out where I want to put this cooler. I've got plenty of extra hose. Here they are here. So there's lots of extra room here. I can put this pretty much anywhere I want, but I think I'm going to try to keep it as far forward as I can go. So let's see. Those will sit right about there nicely enough. Let's give that a try. Biggest thing I want to make sure is that when I mount this, it's not in a place where it's going to interfere with my riding. So, how about that? Bring it up a little bit. Yeah, okay. That'll work. So we'll keep it just a little bit in front of this tie down back here. That keeps it far enough back that it shouldn't interfere with anything. And I think with it sitting this high, I can still get in there and get to my plug for the winch. Yeah, that should work nicely. Okay. Well, we're getting closer. It amazes me how difficult these are to work on sometimes. So the front bolts, those two up there right in front of the cooler, actually go in right behind and just below the fuse block in the sidecar. At least that's where I've got mine mounted. So I like the location. It's far enough down. It shouldn't... Oh, good. Not scratched. It shouldn't cause any trouble for a passenger sitting in here. Obviously, you don't want to rest your arm on that, but it's far enough down I shouldn't expect that's going to happen. So anyway, I got those bolted in. Trying to deal with the drill, I would definitely recommend a 90-degree drill. Something like this. There's just not enough room working between this sidecar support and the car itself. So yeah, I could definitely disconnect the sidecar and kind of tip it out a little bit to make more room to work on it, but this worked too. I did end up having to take the fittings off of the front of that so I could make room to actually drill those holes. There wasn't anywhere to go from the inside. I was hoping to be able to drill just pilots on the outside and then drill the rest from the end, but that didn't work out. So anyway, 90-degree drill, take everything out of the way as much as you can, and it worked out pretty well. So here are my two lines. These are about the right length, actually, to go on here. So I think just to allow some extra room for the engine to move, I'm going to go ahead and leave these at full length. We'll take the tape off the end of them and put the hose clamps on. But yeah, I can then take these and just kind of tie wrap them right here against the sidecar support. Having them out in this position, yeah, they're kind of exposed out here, but if I'm off-road, I'll probably have the winch installed, so that'll provide some extra support and protection for them. I might even consider putting something over the top of them just to make sure they've got a little extra abrasion support. But we'll see. Maybe some wire loom or something like that. We'll see what we can do. These fittings came with the regular white Teflon tape on them already installed, but I'm actually going to take that off and put this on instead. So the yellow Teflon is designed for like fuel and oil, so I figure if there's going to be oil in this, it makes sense to use this one. So if you have the opportunity, you can find this at any of the home stores, some of the auto parts stores. It's worth getting this stuff for this particular project. And there we are. So I know this isn't quite finished yet. I haven't quite figured out if I'm going to be able to fill the oil strictly from the engine or if I need to add a little bit to the cooler directly. So that's why I went ahead and left the tape on here and I didn't tighten down the hose clamps just yet. But here's what we have. There's the extra oil cooler installed in the sidecar. Down here you can see the adapter plate that it attaches to on the engine. That is the old filter. I'll be swapping that out, so it's just barely on there. Obviously, don't run the engine without oil, so I'm just going to push it back into the garage until the rest of my supplies arrive and I can finish this up. So once I have these finally connected, I'm going to just take them and tie wrap them. I'll give a little bit of extra space in there, probably something like that. That way there's a little bit of movement for the engine if needed, and the sidecar can still shift a little bit compared to the bike. So hopefully that combination will work out well. And as you can see, I hope, this definitely sits high enough up here that I've got some good airflow around it. So with the winch off of there, you've got good airflow around the head, and then up top we've got the cooler as well. So hopefully this will do a good job. We've got good coolant in a couple of places. We've got a larger circulating oil volume and that extra ability to cool the engine. So hopefully this will make it a little easier to ride in the summertime. Granted, I really haven't taken this out in summer heat just yet, so just trying to prepare before I get there. But hopefully really soon you'll see some riding videos coming in. I think this is probably the last project I'll be doing on this bike, at least for quite some time. So hopefully you've enjoyed this series. I'll try to give a little more information about some of the other projects I work on if I find anything else to do with this. But otherwise, this one will be riding videos from here on out. I'll see you over the next horizon.